was brilliant. So I grew up at the height of the slasher craze, and even before that, when I was much younger, I kind of remember the sort of the end of the first slasher craze, which would have been the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s, when you had the likes of like things like Friday the 13th, you had The Burning, you know, these kinds of movies that for me were, I just love them. Like, I mean, I live in a place full of forests, so what more than a masked killer, you know? I love those stories. I love the way they looked. I love the kind of the sound of them. And even just there was this idea of always the unknown. And that's living in the countryside. And Ireland became a much smaller place now with development. But back then, there was a lot of space. And so these films really resonated with me. Another one that I remember growing up was things like the Blair Witch Project. You know, we went through many stages of cinema. Like, I grew up a lot also, you know, and we didn't have a lot of channels growing up. Nobody had Sky. My parents weren't going to get Sky. So we had like, you know, RTE1, RTE2, and then the British channels. So I remember spending a lot of time staying up all night to watch those Hammer horrors. And I love classic films. So for me, classic Hollywood was excellent, but classic Britain was also fantastic. And I studied cinema and got my A-levels, barely. And then I went to Kingston University in just outside London, and I studied cinema there as well. And that was mostly film theory, but that's when things got very exciting because I got to learn a lot about cinema, and particularly deconstructing cinema, which really, you know, cinema now, film school now is very different. It's much more technical, but back then it was much more theoretical. And I regret nothing, because the reality of it is, it's the tools of being able to deconstruct cinema that has made my career much easier. Because the technical side is easily learned in reality, it's practical. But the theoretical is the most complex. It's finding structures, it's finding patterns in cinema. And it gave me so many tools on things that were even outside cinema. So even my nature work has so much benefit from my ability to break down storytelling. And it's, you know, as a cinematographer, that's one of the main things that you do. You have to read a script, you have to visualize the script, then you have to talk to the director, then you have to look for ideas, and then try and incorporate some of the ideas of the director and try and add a few of your own in there that are in synchronization with the director's vision. But you have to be able to analyze, you have to be able to deconstruct for yourself to do that and find the crux of what the story is. Because whether the genre is horror, whether it's drama, these are often window dressing. Deep down, every film has a message. It has a real story. What is the film about? You know, even the Dawn of the Dead is a very complex criticism on capitalism. And when you approach cinema that way, it gets very interesting. The video nasties and films like that were also rebelling. They were rebelling against mainstream horror. And they were films that were made by people who didn't have a lot of money, certainly didn't have studio approval. And they, much like French New Wave, did the same thing, but on the other side. So there was a lot of, should we say, they took a lot of artistic license. Because if you look at I Spit on Your Grave, for example, it's actually one of the better films, and because it's actually quite a good film. And because there was quite a lot of layers on it. It was a revenge film, but there was a lot of sexuality and exploitation within that concept, but it was a female hero in it. And that was giving feminism an opportunity to be. It wasn't they were hiding behind the strength of a man. It was the opposite. And to see a female protagonist being able to exact that kind of level of revenge was brilliant. It was beautiful. And I think too many people focused on the violence and like I like to say, the window dressing, and lost what the film was truly about. It was about female empowerment when they have been put down by men. And as a guy who has daughters, I find this sort of thing very interesting. And it's, even today, underutilized.
Finally, I wanted to mention that you've just released a book, Wild Thing.
The book parallels the story about how we got to where we are here in Dunsany Nature Reserve and everything that I've done here. And it goes through a very turbulent storytelling of my younger life. And unfortunately, it wasn't all roses. And ultimately, it's about finding harmony through the land. And that's where I think this has, again, some parallels, because old Irish folklore and understanding of the land, I mean, they come together. And that's why I think when you look at this book, it almost complements the reading material, just like the script. And I feel that that's why I feel that I would be an appropriate person to help tell this story.
Where can people get the book?
Everywhere and anywhere, all major bookshops. Preferably you buy it from an independent bookshop. But if you don't want to do that, Amazon has it too.